Good evening. Today is Thursday, December 16, 2021. The time is 6 p.m. The special meeting of the following will come to order. The Victorville City Council and the same council also sitting as the Victorville Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency, the City's Housing Assets successor, Joint Powers Financing Authority, and the Victorville Water District. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Becerra.
Present.
Councilmember Gomez. Mayor Pro Tem Irving.
Present.
Mayor Jones.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. We do have a quorum. And the pastor that we had scheduled to lead us in our invocation is not with us this evening. So I'm going to have that great privilege. And then followed by our invocation, we're going to have Lieutenant Jacob Galt lead us in the pledge to our wonderful flag. So if everyone will please rise if you're able. Can everyone hear me? All right, let's bow our heads. Oh, well, you know, one of my favorite scriptures is, how the Lord thinks about us. And in the scripture that I'm going to share with you, the word workmanship in the original Greek language means it's poema, and it means poem, and we are God's poem. So let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for being with us tonight, for caring about us. We know that we can't go anywhere apart from your knowing who we are and where we are. We know that you've created us in Christ Jesus. We are your workmanship, and you've created us to do good works, that we should walk in them. You prepared them for us beforehand. So I pray, Lord, that you would continue to strengthen this council and the staff here at Victorville to do the good work that you've called us to do on behalf of the people, the great people of our great city, Victorville. We ask that you would bless this meeting, that you would give us wisdom and discernment and understanding to do what you've called us to do. In the mighty name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, Lieutenant. Madam Clerk, will you please present the agenda and any revisions thereto?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no revisions to the agenda.
All right, thank you. And council members, any conflicts of interest declarations? There should be none. All right, with that said, moving on. Madam Clerk, before I do the introduction to public comments, are there requests to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yes, I'm glad to hear that. All right, well, everyone, welcome to tonight's fifth and final public hearing on transitioning to by-district elections. Your city council is interested in your ideas and opinions, and furthermore, endeavors to incorporate them into its deliberations. At the same time, the council must be able to carry out its business in an organized and efficient manner, free from material disruption. Therefore, this meeting will be administered in accordance with Government Code Section 54957.9 and the council's established policies and procedures. All testimony during this special meeting is limited to the subject matter posted on item 1 of today's agenda. And since that item is a public hearing with its own designated period for public testimony, speakers may find it more helpful to address the council during the public hearing itself after having heard a formal presentation from the demographer. Individuals may speak once per public comment period for up to 3 minutes and must direct their comments solely to the council. Open meeting laws do not permit council members to engage in dialogue during the public comment periods. Speakers are requested to comment as briefly as the subject permits. Whether attending this meeting in person or via Zoom, once comments are invited, the speaker will be called on by name, then recognized by the presiding officer. Audience members may not disrupt, disturb, or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of this meeting, and those who do are subject to removal from the meeting pursuant to Penal Code 403. Your understanding and cooperation are appreciated. Madam Clerk.
Yvonne Mashak.
Good evening, council members. I'm here to speak to you regarding this new redistricting. First of all, as you can see from here, the people, to be honest, there's not enough people or Victorville participation. I don't believe that it's in our best interest to do this until we have a full, and I mean a full, of the registered voters in Victorville have their participation regarding this. We voted for you guys to do the best you could for us as a city. We didn't ask for a redistricting. We didn't want that. If we did, I'm sure it would have been done a long time ago. This is very important. I feel that it's going to bring in corruption. I think it will be very bad for us as a community. Too much divisiveness. I think that if you really look at this, you'll see this is not the way to do it. We're a community. We're a city. And we voted for you to do the best for us. We didn't ask you to turn around and change the voting. That's what I have to say for now.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate your comments. Madam Clerk.
Anthony Hernandez.
Good evening and welcome.
Hello, how you doing? My name is Anthony Hernandez. I've lived in the High Desert about 15 years, and I've been part of the Southwest Carpenters for 15 years also. And I do live in Victorville. I am a registered voter, and I lived here for 10 years. And so I'm just here to show support for the final map in the districts. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk.
Enrique Barrios.
Welcome, sir. Glad to have you with us.
Yeah, my name is Enrique Barrios. I'm a proud member of the Union Carpenters. Been a member for 20 years. I've been living in Victorville for about 17 years, and I'm just here to support the final map for the redistricting.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Angel Esparza.
Welcome again, Mr. Esparza.
Good evening, members of the council. I appreciate your time. Again, so I'm here as a resident of the Victor Valley. I do so strongly support the final draft, the final map here. We appreciate what all of you guys do and all the hard work you guys put into all this stuff. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Esparza. Madam Clerk.
Rafael Porras.
Good evening, Mr. Porras. Welcome again.
Good evening. Well, this is the final map. So you're seeking for re-election next year. I'm be your replacement. You in the wrong district. This is my district. Okay, thank you. Well,
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk.
Ryan McCachran.
Mr. McCachran, welcome. And for our audience, in case they don't know, this is our former mayor of Victorville. Welcome.
Nothing that his say is viable either.
Member Gomez is out of order, was not recognized by the chair. Mr. McCachran, I apologize.
That's okay. It's expected.
Of course it is.
Member Gomez will suspend.
Do you want to mute?
Member Gomez will bring herself to order.
When I go up and speak,
right,
you see
Madam-
what she says about me.
Madam Clerk, will you kindly mute the member as she refuses to bring herself to order? And as soon as it's appropriate for her to speak, you can feel free to unmute. Mr. McCachran.
Thank you. I just wanted to congratulate you on getting to this point. I think it's amazing. I was not optimistic that the four of you could agree on maps, but you are here tonight. From my perspective, I see a tremendous amount of opportunity to regain the soul of the city through some of these districts by making sure that certain people don't destroy the city by shutting down golf courses and things like that. So I'm very encouraged by what you've been able to accomplish. I am too supportive of making sure that we do have these maps and that they're put in place so it doesn't cost the city any more money. So with that, thank you for everything that you've done and good.
Thank you, Mr. McEachran. Madam Clerk?
Chef Basil.
Good evening, Mr. Kimbrough.
I too, first of all, I'm Chef Basil. I'm the president of the Victorville, California African American Caucus. And I too want to say we're very supportive. I represent the churches as well, the African American churches. My pastor is Bishop David Denson, and he supports it as well. And we're very proud that all of you have come to a conclusion, as it winds down. And if it stays the way it is, we look forward to a new person over there to come visit the church and, give us a great speech and let us know what's going on. Most of you have been to our church. And the only thing that he would wish is for me to say that we wish we had more participation, but you guys had to do with, what you had to do. In regards to the final map, I don't know how it's going to go tonight. I understand the ordinance. I just have a question. And I'm still learning about this sequence stuff. Are you going to be changing any sequence tonight by any chance?
The sequencing has been established.
Oh, it has been established.
Yes, sir.
So there's no change. Okay. Then that answers my question. So I appreciate you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kimbrough. Madam Clerk?
I'm going to assume Councilmember Gomez would like to speak.
Thank you. Member Gomez, you're free to step down to the podium. So ladies and gentlemen, is Councilmember Gomez. Member Gomez, you're free to step down to the podium.
You're going to say something, but you didn't for Mr. McEachran, so I'm going to wait so I can go down there. And
That's
finish
not
your
acceptable.
speech.
Please make your way to the podium. Madam Clerk,
you
can you
gonna
please,
speak?
Madam Clerk, can you please start Ms. Gomez's timer?
So what I have to say,
Ms. Gomez, you are to go down to the podium. That is, Gomez, of course not. I never do. Ms. Gomez, step down to the podium. Your time has already started. I shouldn't wish you to lose any time. So ladies and gentlemen, as with all speakers, we're not going to play this game, Member Gomez. Okay. We're not, we're moving on. Madam Clerk, next speaker. Then you need to step down to the podium and follow up. Member Gomez, you will follow the rules of order. You will follow the directives of the chair. We're not going to do this, Member Gomez. Madam Clerk, is the timer ready? Okay, so I shouldn't wish you to lose your time. Please step down to the podium. Member Gomez, step down to the podium. Member Gomez is out of order and will bring herself to order. So ladies and gentlemen, as I'm required to do, the council member is choosing to speak as a member of the audience. You are to, she does so without the color.
my time is running and you need to stop the clock or you need to stop talking.
Member Gomez, you will.
My time is going and you are interrupting my time. 205, 204, 203, 202, 201, 2 minutes, 159, 158, 157. Are you finished? Okay, because you're not gonna take my time. Anyways, so you guys heard how she addresses, and I am a sitting council member, but if she has other former individuals who come up, she ensures that they're credibly introduced. And this is what the point in what I wanted the people to hear. So this is the third time that we had an attorney come in, and finally the city council had to move into districts. And a lot of the concerns that many people had was the marketing, Mr. Metzler, the marketing to ensure that the people who were notified was not there. The legal requirements would be argued that were. However, a lot of people will come up and tell you, like we had an individual today and spoke about the need to have more representation. So if you focus on these two ends, on these two sides, you'll realize that you'll either have commissioners, former commissioners, or you'll have individuals that may not have been here for the first 6 times that this was going to be contributed. And that's really sad because we could have had these meetings the first and the third Tuesday of every month. But the city council with administration decided, no, we wanted to exclude the people. You can ask Mr. Dubonowski what his opinion is. And with the exclusion of people, we would have the least amount of participation, which you have accomplished. So it doesn't matter how you ask Mr. Dubonowski, Deborah, or what you do to try to solidify
The
that
audience member
what
will
is
speak to the
happening
full of the
was
council.
not what you did. Well, we see it and it's evident. And the people have to come up here and address the council in this manner with their 3 minutes to ensure that they have some kind of voice.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Mr. Deep,
Madam City Clerk, I'd like to speak.
yes. So as Member Becerra makes her way down to the podium, the audience is advised that the council member is going to speak as a member of the public, and as she does so without the color of authority in her role as a council member. The audience is advised that it's free to weigh her comments and her remarks, give them what credibility you wish you would, as you would with any other member of the audience. Welcome, Ms. Becerra. It's what I do. Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the Victorville residents, and to everybody in the audience. I will take-
Ms. Becerra, you will turn and address your comments to the full of the council.
You guys are wondering, and you've been told that we did not spend money.
Ms. Becerra, you have to
Twenty-three
speak to the
thousand
council.
$408.29 was spent to get the word out. We put it on the city's website. We put press releases out on October 7th, 22nd, and 28th. We went through social media, which would be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We put digital newsletters out on Victorville Connect. We went up on the Auto Park Jumbotron, which is the one.
Ms. Becerra, you're required to address the council. Please turn and face the council.
The
It's what I'm
council knows
required
all
to do.
this. We put out flyers. We went door to door in the city of Victorville and hung door handles at every single resident in the high desert. It was said, why isn't more people here? We asked the same question. Why isn't more people here? We let everybody know everything that was going on. Yes, we had different meetings. We had one exclusively in Spanish on Zoom. I apologize if you, by not now, have not gotten used to how to use Zoom. There is free laptops and free phones given out practically on every corner here in the city of Victorville. Our mayor also put something out in High Desert Daily News. The digital ads went out, the radio ads went out, $10,800 in radio ads went out. On Cat Country, 106.5, the Fox Y102, and the Spanish language, 103.1. Water bills, everybody got one in their inserts, 35,500. Bus shelters, every single advertising bus shelter in the city of Victorville got to know. We printed up 5,000 promotional cards that on many occasions, a council member here took stacks of them to pass out. And at the Halloween boot drive, we also handed one to each person. I do apologize to the residents if you feel that you were not notified more. Short of hiring a skywriter, I don't know what else we could have done. We've done everything we can to this point, and I hope we go forward at this point with a good vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Becerra. Madam Clerk.
There are no additional in-chambers speakers.
Thank you. So with that said, the in-chambers comment period has concluded, and we'll now take requests from our Zoom audience.
Our first speaker is Scott Rafferty.
Good evening, Mr. Rafferty, and welcome.
Good evening, and I, assuming as I do that you stick to this map and sequence later this evening, I want to congratulate you on restoring one of the greatest American inventions of all, which is single-member constituencies. That's our form of democracy. The colonists invented it because the Queen of England wasn't going to keep appointing people like she did in England until the 19th century. We had to do it on our own. This made democracy close to the people. It was working for the New York City Council 150 years before Alexander Hamilton designed Congress. It's why the Germans had their own council member. And it's made New York one of the most vital, effective melting pots as it was even then. It means that you guys have a new boss in your own neighborhood that you're accountable to. You're role models to the children in your neighborhood. You're going to behave yourselves better. I think you're going to get along with each other better. You're going to need to respect each other's constituencies because you're going to be accountable to your own constituency, and they're going to want you to be a good negotiator. So I continue to be optimistic not only about today's vote, but about what it means for the relationships within the council and between the council and its public in the future. You know, this long-term reform, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen. You're going to have a stronger council, a council that understands its community better, a council with competitive elections, which means there's going to be people coming to the board with different gifts and new ideas, and it's going to lead to a stronger Victorville. Again, I think you look back on it, all four of you, I'm sorry, are going to be proud of having this as part of your legacy. I know there have been rocky times, and I want to second something Ms. Becerra said. You did something I've never before seen. You put district elections as the homepage, and thank you for that. I hope I've been as energetic a partner as possible. I came to the city. I met with the pastors, with the bishops, with different communities. I heard from some of the former mayors in council sessions. To the extent I didn't, I went out and reached out to former mayors too, of both parties. So I've tried to do my part in making this a participatory. It's tough to draw maps, but you've had a good degree of participation, and I congratulate you on that as well. So I look forward to hopefully getting this all done without any major changes later this evening.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Rafferty. Yes, thank you, Mr. Rafferty. Madam Clerk.
Our next speaker is Galaxy A12.
Good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just actually, you know what? I knew there was something I wanted to say tonight, but I just couldn't find the words. And then a blessing occurred. The first lady who walked up to the podium, and I know she's spoken before, but her name escapes me right now. But she expressed exactly how I feel, why I'm negative. And I don't, you know, when I hear Mr. Rafferty speaking, I'm like, I hear the noise, I hear the white noise, the garble, I tune it out because there's no way you can take this fluff and make it anything other than what it is. It's a forced issue upon a city whose electorate never voted to have this, and obviously wasn't that important of an issue since it's been 20 years since that, 21 years since that law was passed. So I think it's tacky. I don't even have the words to express how pitiful I think this whole ordeal is. But I am glad for the sake of the city that it's moving forward. I am happy about that. I mean, if you've got to go, if we got to do it, we got to do it. So I'm glad that the council is moving forward. And I do want to say I take exceptional delight in the fact that former Mayor McCachran and Councilmember Ryan McCachran spoke tonight, and how much just the mere mention of that man's name gets under Councilmember Gomez's skin. That was the highlight of my day, and I thank you, Madam Mayor and Council.
Inappropriate. Please move on.
I'm done. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Roger LaPlante.
Good evening, Mr. LaPlante.
Good evening, and I want to thank the City Council and the City of Victorville on the behalf of the voters of our whole area here. To reference the professional gadfly, it's the law, and we work very hard. I'm the former chairman of voter registration in the county of San Bernardino. And these laws are made for voters. Just to clarify the confusion. Yeah, and it's been 20 years and it's a shame it's taken this long. But I want to thank the city for doing their due diligence because you did a fantastic job. And if we can get the rest of our community in this same direction, we are going to have progress. And I just want to thank the council tonight.
Much appreciated, Mr. LaPlante. Madam Clerk.
The next speaker has the last 4 digits of his phone number as 5307.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to kind of, back up the fact that our community was reached out to on many, many levels. The lack of involvement is a complete testimony to just the general population's lack of desire to be involved in the communities. This goes back generations of not being taught within the home to get involved in politics in our communities. And so this is the result. That is what is showing. It is not from a lack of effort. The only lack of effort I would see is I didn't get a phone call from anybody. So if there is such an urgency to get that many people involved, phone calls should have gone out on an individual level, not just from volunteers, but from city council members. And another deterrent from being involved in these city council meetings, a lot of us we work, we're parents, we can't get down there. So we're on Zoom, we're on the phone, if we can make it. Sometimes we have to drive around. So not everybody uninvolved is because they're uninterested. It's just not, we're all hardworking people. It's a, blue collar community. We got to do our thing. But those who actually participate, get involved, or attend a meeting are so absolutely embarrassed and disgusted by the behavior going on. My pastor did the prayer a couple of months ago, and I happened to run into him at church and said, "Oh, I heard you, the city council meeting." The most politically correct, courteous, mindful man I know in my life. First reaction, "Oh my gosh, that place is a circus." That is the representation we have. You know what? Member Gomez, I actually respect your passion.
Thank you, ma'am. You have to address the full of the council. You're free to
Okay.
make your comments, but you have to address the council.
Absolutely. I respect Member Gomez's passion, intelligence, drive. What I don't respect is the fact that you're taking all of that energy. She's taking all that energy and causing a disruption that completely annihilates the tone and the movement of these meetings. To where,
Ma'am, I truly appreciate your comments, but this evening we're speaking directly to the one item.
I understand.
It's
Yes.
restricted to the public hearing, but I do appreciate your intention.
No, and I apologize. I didn't mean to do that. So, but I do want to say that yes, we have all been reached out to. There was some confusions in some areas, and when the meetings were happening, not exactly conducive to a lot of our schedules. But I just want to say I do appreciate, because I got a ton of emails. That's really where I was getting everything, but I got them almost on a definitely a weekly, if not bi-weekly schedule. So I don't want it to be assumed to the general population that you guys didn't try. I'm sure there could have been more effort on everybody's part, but I just wanted to give that support.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Madam Clerk.
There are no additional speakers.
All right, with that said, will you kindly set the timer for 30 seconds so that if we have anyone else in our Zoom audience who's having difficulty connecting, it'll give them an opportunity to overcome.
Madam Mayor, if I might, while you're waiting, just a technical issue. You indicated this was the 5th and final public hearing. As a technical matter, next week on the 21st, when we do the second reading, that also will actually be a public hearing.
Yes, sir. I didn't realize that, so I appreciate it.
Madam Mayor, 30 seconds has lapsed and there are no additional speakers.
All right, with that said, our public comment period has now closed. And the chair brings this matter back to the council. We're now going to move on to our first and only business in order this evening, which is public hearings. And that's item number 1, the introduction of ordinance number 2422, establish district-based city council elections and approving the district boundary map and sequencing of elections. Mr. Metzler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council. On September 27th of this year, the City Council did direct staff to proceed by adopting its resolution of intent to transition from a at-large election system to a district-based election system. And since that time, in such a short period of time, we've worked diligently to do everything we can to get the word out, invite public participation, conduct community workshops, public hearings to the point where we're at tonight, which is the 5th public hearing. And I must first applaud you for all of the effort and energy put into the meeting of December 8th. What we accomplished at that meeting was monumental and was the result of a lot of hard work and energy put into this whole process. We're in the home stretch, I would characterize. And so with that, before you today is an item dealing with the ordinance, also dealing with the resultant map from your last meeting, along with the sequencing of those districts. So with that, we have a brief presentation from Mr. Chris Chafee from Redistricting Partners. He can bring us an overview as to where we're at today. And then from there, we would turn it back to the council for consideration.
Thank you. And Mr. Chafee, before you begin, if you'll hold on just a moment, I'm going to have our clerk read the recommendation.
That your honorable city council receive a presentation from city staff and redistricting partners, open the public hearing, receive input from the public regarding draft district boundary maps, the proposed sequencing of elections of council members, and proposed ordinance number 2422 to establish district-based elections, adopt the final map and the election sequencing, close the public hearing, and introduce ordinance number 2422 for adoption and first reading by title only, and waive further reading in full of proposed ordinance number 2422. The ordinance will be brought back before the City Council for second reading and final adoption at a public hearing on December 21st, 2021.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. And council members, you have a hard copy of what I believe is about to be our presentation. So with that said, Mr. Chafee, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. Let me just share my screen, share my presentation. Thank you for having me here tonight. And again, this will just be a very short overview presentation of the final map and a short description of the process. So one thing that has guided the districting process for the city of Victorville are the traditional redistricting principles of the Fair Maps Act and followed throughout the country. The first criteria that we've really tried to follow is that we want to create relatively equal sized districts based on people, not citizens. But we also have the tool given to us by the courts of a total deviation of 10% from the largest to the smallest council district by population. And that allows for the criteria that follow to be used by the city council. The second criteria really is contiguous. So we want all the districts to be able to be drawn with one line, to not have an island of one district inside the other. The third criteria, and something that's been very important throughout the process, this very transparent process, is that we want to maintain communities of interest, grouping people together in a district so that they can have fair representation going forward. The fourth criteria that we look to is to follow city and other census designated place boundaries. And the final criteria is keeping districts as compact as possible, both in appearance and function. And I think the final maps really do create those compact districts. So this is an overview of the city prior to this redistricting process. You can see that its overall population, according to the 2020 census, is 131,417 people. And its Latino citizen voting age population, which is a data set used by the Department of Justice to look at compliance for Section 2 of the Federal Voting Rights Act, is at 45.6%. Now, through the iterative process of first doing your first 2 hearings on the process and traditional redistricting principles, the outreach hearings, you had 2 map presentations to the City Council, starting with draft maps and working your way through the draft maps that redistricting partners provided and the community maps provided to come to your final map decision at the last hearing. And each of the maps that we presented and the public created, we did these atlas maps of where you can see the overview of the map, a data table, and then the individual districts included in those map proposals. So this is the final map that you selected at the last hearing. And I just wanted to go over a couple high points from the data table. First, you can see that you're well within the total of 10% total deviation. You can see that your total deviation for this plan is 4.4%, with District 4 being 2.4% overpopulated and District 5 being 2.2% underpopulated. You can also see under the citizen voting age population that you have 4 districts with a Latino CVAP of over 45%. Those are the highlights of the final plan, and I give it back to the council for further questions.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Chafee. All right, with that said, I'm going to open it up to technical questions for clarification as to the staff report and the presentation. We're going to begin with Member Gomez.
Yes, I know Paul Mitchell's not on, but we have Chris. Chris, since we have gone through the map and approved the map and the sequencing portion of it, would you be able to delineate the major north, east, south, and west streets for every single one that we have approved?
You want me to describe the streets boundaries?
Yeah, so in the past, Brentwood was described as the northeast, southwest of what major streets encompassed it. So the same rendition is being requested.
Madam Mayor, if I might, with Chris not being local, I could just as easily do that to spare Chris.
Perfect. That'd be great, Mr. Metzler. Thank you.
So I'm looking at the same maps that were published on the website, and I'm drilling down. And so first looking at District 1, which is effectively your southeast part of the community, bounded on the south by Bear Valley Road, extending easterly to the eastern jurisdictional boundary of the Mojave River, generally incorporating the Victor Valley College area, Ridgecrest Ridge, basically coming up and abutting to the county unincorporated area of Spring Valley Lake. Then effectively moving northerly to capture property in Old Town. Trying to find the Zoom map here. If you'll just bear with me for 2 seconds. It does incorporate Green Tree East, It's bounded on the north and western side of the district by 7th Street. And then coming down effectively to, looks like Yates Road, I'm sorry, Winona Street, south. So that's generally District 1. And if you wanted to go to the website, there's actually a version of the map on the website where you can actually zoom and drill down a little bit better. District 2 is, I'll call that green, but it's north bounded by Palmdale Road, east bounded by Cobalt Road, and then it basically diagonally traverses southwesterly along the power utility corridor that divides the city. It does jog around, I think, the area that we're commonly calling Liberty Village area, but it does incorporate what was referred to as the Golden Triangle area, basically going down to the southern boundary where Hesperia meets up with the city of Victorville. It does cover areas westerly of Highway 395, south of Palmdale Road, and also south of Bear Valley Road. District 3, I'll call that pink, also is bounded on the northwest boundary by the LADWP corridor that runs through the town. It does incorporate the Hook Park area. It does meander down to the south boundary. Close to the south boundary is Palmdale Road. Does extend easterly across the east side of I-15 to 7th Street. And this district does incorporate what is traditionally referred to as Old Town in the northeast part of its district boundary. District 4, I'm going to call that purple. It looks purple to me. And I would generally describe this as the immediate mall area. And so it does also abut on the western side, the LADWP transmission easements running through the town, dividing the city. That would be the western boundary. Its southern boundary is effectively Eucalyptus Street. Its eastern boundary largely is I-15, but there is a segment in the, I guess, the northeastern part of that district that does extend east of I-15 to its eastern boundary of 7th Avenue. And its northern boundary is effectively Winona Street. That's District 4, and the final district we're calling District 5. And that district is basically the northern most part of the community. It incorporates all of Southern California Logistics Airport. It also along the south and the southeasterly borders of the district, also abut up against the LADWP transmission easements. It's south bounded largely by Palmdale Road. It's largely west bounded by Highway 395. And it does cover some area at the very north part of the community and east part of the community, the CEMEX cement plant area, the Mojave River area, Stoddard Wells Road area is also in that district. I think that generally summarizes some of the either major streets or major identities of those districts.
Thank you. My next question is, what does an introduction to a resolution mean for the CVRA process?
Well, the introduction of ordinance is a very typical process. When we adopt an ordinance or your municipal code, that's what this becomes. And you adopt it first by holding a first reading of an ordinance. Of course, after having the public hearing, then ultimately you will come back at least 5 full days after the initial first reading to have a second reading of that same ordinance. The way the process works is once you have completed your second reading, then you basically have approved the law. And in this particular case, the law that we're speaking to is writing into your municipal code the type of election system you're going to have, which in this case would be a district election system. It will also define the numbering system of the districts along with the sequencing of the districts.
And okay, so the ordinance becomes a municipal code, which then becomes a law. Can an ordinance, which then becomes a Muni code to become a law, be challenged, and if so, under what authority?
It could be challenged, likely going into the court system, filing a case in Superior Court. Andre, you want to take a stab at that, or did I answer it sufficiently?
That's absolutely correct. It can be challenged. It doesn't become effective for 30 days until after second reading, and it certainly can be challenged at any time during that period.
And will this be placed on the City of Victorville's charter?
No, it will not be placed in the city of charter. It'll actually be placed in the city's municipal code.
So looking at the charter and looking at the municipal code, the priority is on the municipal code or the charter?
Case law will, in this particular subject matter, will give deference to the municipal code, not the charter when there's a conflict in between the two.
Okay. And can the boundaries after December 6, 2021 be redistricted and resequenced? If so, when would that occur?
I don't have any vision that there's an intent to. I don't know of any requirement to. The only requirement that we're aware of is every 10 years having to do it, largely connected to the change in the census. So I don't know if there was a desire to try to change it. I'm not sure what the new basis would be for, since we're relying on the census numbers every 10 years given.
Okay, so it's my understanding that it could be redistricted and resequenced based on census data that occurs every 10 years. Is that what you said?
Every 10 years would be the process that you would go to reestablish districts.
Okay, so when that process in 10 years come, will we go the same process that we have these 90 days, or is that a completely separate process?
The process will largely be the same. We won't be under the same tight time frame that we currently are under, and that's because we don't have currently a district election system. But once we effectively have a district election system, when it comes to what then will be called redistricting, we will know well enough in advance. In fact, we know now that 10 years from now, effectively, we need to do the same thing. So we will plan that into our order of business, maybe even a year in advance to start the process, as opposed to being under such tight time frame as we are under this districting process.
So that wouldn't require council agenda item. That would just be something that administration takes over, understanding that it needs to occur?
Well, we would take the lead in administering the process, but all of the approvals to further that redistricting effort would have to come back to the city council.
Okay, and finally, will the marketing process, Councilmember Elizabeth Liz Becerra went ahead and provided public comment stating that there was all these avenues that somehow people were reached and thousands of dollars were spent. Would that be the same, if I may quote unquote, rigorous types of marketing to reach to people occur?
I didn't quite catch the last part of that, but I think I understand where the question was going. I can't presuppose what an administration will do 10 years from now. I'm certainly hoping I'm a part of that 10 years from now. And certainly if I were I would see leading a process not a lot different than what we had currently done. I think certainly with more time, we'll be able to expand that over a larger period of time and maybe be able to do more community workshops and things of that nature. But I think that the format or the framework that we established for this one, I think it's easy to assume that you could do something similar in 10 years to try to create the promotion necessary to invite participation.
Thank you for that information.
All right, thank you, Member Gomez. Member Tim Irving.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not sure if I'm putting the cart before the horse. I have a question about the proposed ordinance itself. Is this the appropriate time to seek information? All right, so I have a question. I need some clarification or at least an example to guide me and help me understand Section 3 of the ordinance regarding the technical adjustments, meets and bounds. Can you give me an example of an instance where we might have a technical adjustment and what the adjustment what the outcome might be and how it might impact boundaries and population?
Thank you for that question. I'd actually thought about that same question myself when I read that section. And being that the city attorney authored this, I'll eventually defer to him. But the example that I came with for myself to understand that, and since I made mention of the LADWP utility corridor as an example of a common jurisdictional boundary amongst districts, let's say that corridor is 40 feet wide. And we're currently on the western boundary of that easement. And perhaps we, for whatever reason, maybe for elections related reasons, maybe it was easier for the ROV, not exactly sure. But say we moved that district boundary from the west side 40 feet to the east side, where there was no impact, there was no change in any of the population data. You're not adding any new individuals. You're not changing any of the CVAP numbers, for example. That was one thing that I rationalized with when I tried to understand this section myself, is that would likely be an example of something that doesn't impact or would be considered not non-substantive. Andre, you want to elaborate on that since you're the author of this?
Yeah, Keith, you essentially addressed it very well. I mean, it's basically we're doing meets and bounds boundaries. We need to make sure they're all consistent with census tracts, for example, so that the registrar of voters can, define appropriately the districts. It's really just like little technical corrections to make sure that the census tracts line up with the boundaries that we have.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Did you have anything further?
Well, I guess what I'm understanding is that it wouldn't, whatever this is here has to do more or less with, I guess, boundaries that are natural within our community and in no way impacts the population that is, what am I trying to say? That's within the districts that we've identified. It's my understanding.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
That's correct.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Member Becerra.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Metzler, I did look it up on the internet and it is on our website. When all this is said and done, is there going to be a special, like you can go online right now and it says animal control, it says public works and everything. There's going to be a special icon for the public to be able to reach. Who would be in their district? Right now, we're listed as the city council in a group of 4. Next to our names, once all this is final, 30 days pass, is it going to say District 1, 5, 4, 3, whoever, whatever district now we're in?
Eventually, and I say eventually because even though we'll adopt this, we won't have our first district election until November of 22. So technically, even adopting this and going through the second reading next week, you'll still be at-large council members. That doesn't change until such a time where your current existing term expires. And at that point in time, effectively, you would have to reestablish term by getting reelected for a particular district, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And at that point in time, then you would be, say, district, a council member of district number, whatever.
Okay. All right. Thank you. No more questions, Madam Mayor.
But I'm sorry to answer the other part of the question. Once that all gets ferreted out, even after this next election, because it's expected that after this next election in 22, you'll have then 2 district elected council members. So on the website, we would probably under the city council page, identify clearly in what capacity you're representing. It's either District 2, for example, District 4, for example, or at large.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Perfect.
No
All
further
right.
questions.
Great questions, everyone. And I don't have anything on that. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and open the public testimony period. Madam Clerk, do we have in chambers request to speak?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Yvonne Mashak.
Welcome again, ma'am.
Well, after hearing the breakdown of the districts, have you thought about the insurance, homeowner insurance for various areas? Are we going to get red line for those that are in more of a rural or industrial area? Have you thought about that? I'm asking this council to table this, all of this, until you can put it on the ballot so that the people of Victorville can vote on it. Not you guys, not you 4, but the entire registered voters of Victorville. This isn't fair for you to come up with this. 90 days.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk,
Anthony Hernandez.
Mr. Hernandez, did you wish to speak? Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Enrique Barrios. No.
All right.
Angel Esparza.
We're good. Thank you.
Rafael Porras. No.
All right.
Ryan McCachran. Chef Basil.
Good evening again, Mr. Kimbrough.
I just have a couple of questions. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. 2024, 2024, 2024, am I correct? But based upon what you.
We're going by district numbers.
No,
So 2 and 4. So I'm going to just do this for clarification because we're not supposed to do the to and fro, but this one I can do clarification. So districts 2 and 4 are 2022 and the sequencing proposed. 1, 3, and 5 are 2024 and the sequencing proposed.
Good. So nothing's going to change on that.
The council has to take it up, sir.
In regards to that, what the attorney had mentioned, regards to like moving something, the impact, there's not going to be any impact where it affect an elected official or some type of boundary line.
I'll let them take it up when we're through the. I'll let them take it up when we're through the public testimony period. But my understanding is no, sir. Yeah.
And the other thing, so is the vote going to be temporary tonight and then next week it's going to be final?
Okay, so
I can barely hear you. I'm sorry.
oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So these are the kind of questions that we've taken up during the meetings, and I just cannot have a to and fro constantly on this, but I think that's been evidenced by the testimony thus far.
Well, I just want to be clear.
Yes.
I'm not challenging you or anything.
No, I know, sir. I just have to operate within my role as a presiding officer. I can't. It's just this is not appropriate to have a constant to and fro. I'm happy to answer a question or two for clarification if it's appropriate, but
Your best advice to me is get with like you always tell me, get with the city manager.
you can, yes, of course. You got it.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Madam Clerk.
Yes, this lady like right here, I don't know her name.
Welcome, ma'am.
My concern was the annexation that we did a while back. How's that going to affect everything?
Okay, again, these are the kind of questions that you can confer with the city manager on after this, but it's just not appropriate to get into a to and fro discussion between the council and audience members speaking in the public comment period.
The reason I asked is because it involves the boundaries and the maps and the size of them.
Yes.
So
yes, and the city manager will be happy to help you with that, I'm sure, after the conclusion.
Okay.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
That concludes in-person comments.
I'd like to also speak.
Thank you. So Member Gomez will make her way to the podium. So ladies and gentlemen, our council member has chosen to speak as a member of the audience. She does so without the color of authority in her role as a council member. The audience is advised that it's free to weigh and give what credibility it wishes to the comments made by Ms. Gomez. Welcome, Ms. Gomez.
So there's a couple of things, if you can hear me. When you look at the maps, there's two pieces in the center of those maps that surround the odd and the even districts. And those have not been annexed. LAFCO has not have received an application from the city of Victorville for that annexation to take effect. Once we were to annex that area that currently is just contracted like for water services or for street, anything with the county, then that would make an impact on the population. Those would be included. And I also want to let know that it's so important when we speak, we don't just do it during public comment. Public hearings are also very efficient because if we were to go to a court of law, anything that you open up during the CVRA or any kind of discussion thereof would be admissible, which means we would be able to open up and not restrict it to only what the council has opened up, but also what the general public has stated. So that's also very essential. So thank you for also speaking on that. Another thing with the sequencing and questions about temporariness, it's my understanding that it's temporarily only in the basis that once we adopt the resolution, which is today, and then we have 30 days from then, because that's part of the procedural law. Then by the 26th, it's all said and it's done, meaning we don't relook at these maps unless we have some kind of challenge for polarized, whatever it may have. But we understood with Paul Mitchell and the redistricting partners that, you know, we're kosher, we're good, we're inclusive of the majority minority. We've decided on the sequencing and it all seems to fall into line. So it shouldn't be another Palmdale type of court case that we can go by or anything like that. The other thing that I was noting here is when the census data occurs every 10 years, the reason why it would affect is because if we have a higher population coming in from wherever it's coming in, or a lot of the children coming from age 17 to 18, that would definitely increase the populations on every district. And in order to be able to consider the population growth, to be able to maintain within the variance, that's the reason why we have to look and revisit this. And then it'll be a different, hopefully a different council. And then you also have to, the people would also have to come and advocate to see how we can have more marketing, not just forceful marketing, which was done at this regard. It was very different. We don't know at the next level, the council will want to spend the amounts that it was forced to do so. So there was not a lawsuit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Madam Clerk.
Our next speakers are via Zoom.
All right, so that concludes our in-chambers request to speak.
Yes, our first Zoom speaker is Scott Rafferty.
Welcome again, Mr. Rafferty.
Thank you. I want to just make sure we don't confuse cause and effect here. Each of you in an at-large system has a really tough job. You kind of have to be right for every part of the city on every question. And it's hard for you to reach out, each of you, to reach out to the entire city. Now, when we move to districts, it's going to be a lot easier for you to go out to your neighborhood and say, gee, there's a really important question coming up before the city council, and we want your input. So I have a sense of optimism. I also have to tell you that not everybody draws maps, but people have been listening and they've been contributing, and you've had an excellent demographer. I believe there is a high level of satisfaction with these maps, or you would have heard otherwise with this map. And finally, you have set some new standards for the cities in the state, most of whom have not done redistricting yet. You've had it, your homepage, that there will be an artifact of what you've done here that well, I guess you don't have to keep it up for 10 years, but you should. And you've even had the initial petition translated into Spanish. It's been a really impressive web presence and outreach. So you need to take credit for that. And I do want to address this issue of annexation, because one of the elegant things about this map is that Mountain View Acres is surrounded by 3 different districts. So if you do decide to annex it, there's kind of a simple way to divide it up if you choose to do so that doesn't really distort the population equality. You may have additional, as a charter city, you may have additional leeway in annexations due to Election Code 21623C. I'll let your city attorney tell you about that if and when it happens. But that is an important detail that this map is kind of well suited to deal with. Same for the smaller island. You know, you do have 2 provisions in your charter, 300 and 301, which refer to district elections, and those are just kind of superseded. So I think you've taken care of everything. I'm glad to hear nothing is changing. I mean, I would really be both proud of what you've done and patient, because it's going to take a little bit of time to sink in, but you're going to have a more representative council, a more well-informed council, a council that is more capable of reaching out to its constituents. So congratulations, and frankly, well done.
Thank you, Mr. Rafferty. Madam Clerk?
Our next speaker is Roger LaPlante.
Good evening again, Mr. LaPlante. Welcome.
Yes, I have a technical question since you're answering Chef Basil's question, since he should have researched it. Basically, I wanted to know from the city manager, once I put my glasses on and I looked at the actual boundary for Old Town, I'm kind of concerned about the last proposal to extend the boundary into Old Town. Now, I heard somebody say 7th Street was the boundary of Old Town. Why would we make 7th Street the boundary? That runs right through the middle of Old Town. That would disincorporate the voters of Old Town that have been trying to rebuild that place for 25 years now. As a former candidate in that area, I'm very concerned that there might be some gerrymandering going on here. And I'm glad I found my glasses, because you can barely see the roads on this proposed map. And they flipped it sideways, I think, to confuse the public. But after further investigation and looking at this proposed map, I would say no to this proposed map and move that boundary back and give the people of Old Town representation like they deserve. That's the oldest part of our city, and we need to have fair representation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. LaPlante. And I think it's appropriate, Mr. Metzler, for you to answer that, because it is very technical. It relates directly to the boundaries that we're talking about.
Yes, and thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the council, for the opportunity. Yeah, on the website, and I would encourage Mr. LaPlante and anybody else for that fact, that on the website where we do have the maps posted, there is amongst the title that says proposed final map, there's a link that takes you to the proposed final map. But then there's also a link that takes you to the Zoom version where you can actually drill down. And so my suspicion based on the comment is that somebody didn't look, Mr. LaPlante probably didn't drill down to see what I see, which is in this final map with you tonight, that Old Town as we know it is fully incorporated into what we have defined as District 3. And so being a little bit more precise, the area of Old Town, I would say is bounded by, I think that's 11th Street on the eastern edge going right up to the Victor Valley Mortuary. But your traditional Old Town area is Forest Avenue on the south boundary, straddling 7th Street, traversing D Street. What Mr. LaPlante was mentioning with respect to the previous action in the add-in, we were talking about that area north of the tracks, the E Street area, basically the area between the tracks and the Mojave River levee. And that wasn't in a prior version. That's what we added in because we identified that in fact, that area connects more with Old Town. It's always traditionally been considered Old Town. And so that was one of the last changes made to make sure at the same time we weren't exceeding or changing the CVAPs too much. It actually worked out where it was helping this district out and it was helping out the CVAP numbers. So with that, gerrymandering, that's an obscene term in an exercise like this. That's certainly not the case. But as I would restate it, when it comes to Old Town, it's wholly incorporated in District 3.
Thank you, Mr. Metzler. Madam Clerk?
That concludes the speakers.
All right, will you kindly set the timer for 30 seconds in case we have any other attendee by Zoom that's having some difficulty? This will allow time to overcome those challenges.
Mm-hmm.
30 seconds has lapsed and there are no additional speakers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that said, the chair, before I close the public hearing, Mr. Chafee, did you have anything else that you would like to add in light of our public testimony?
No, I think
Thank you.
I don't.
All right, with that said, the chair closes the public hearing and brings this item back to the council and invites a motion from the council.
Madam Motion, I motion to approve and go forward with all of staff's recommendations. You wanted to
Second.
read it or no?
No, you don't need to, but if you could say that it's,
1 through 6?
no, because we've done most of them. So it would be as to points 5 and 6 on the agenda.
That's to point 5 and 6 on the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right, we have a first by Member Becerra, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Irving. We're now going to move into discussion on the pending motion, beginning with the maker, Member Becerra. No, no comments on the pending motion, Mayor Pro Tem?
I have one comment. I've heard a lot of people say that they're proud of us. I'm proud of us as well. This is a good thing. Yay.
Yes, the
18,
sky is blue. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gomez.
No.
Thank you. And the chair has no comments on the pending motion. Discussion period is now closed. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Becerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Gomez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Irving,
Aye.
Mayor Jones.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, so the council has just taken action according to the recommendation as laid out on the agenda as to points 5 and 6. Congratulations to all of my colleagues and our team. This was a hard process. With that said, that concludes our business for this evening, and as a matter of
Madam
housekeeping.
Clerk, Madam Mayor,
Yes.
would you like me to read the title of the ordinance?
Oh, My apologies. Yes,
Thank you.
please. My apologies.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville establishing district-based elections for city council members by amending Title II of the Victorville Municipal Code to add a new chapter 2.15, City Council District-Based Elections, and approving the district boundary map and sequencing of elections for city council members.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I thank you for catching that. Mr. D. Bortnowski, that we read the ordinance after we've taken a vote. Is there a problem with that?
No, I think that's fine. It's on the record.
All right, thank you. All right, with that said, that concludes our business for this evening. It's a matter of housekeeping. All council members, staff, and audience members will kindly vacate council chambers and City Hall within 10 minutes. That's 7:25 p.m. so that the facilities may be cleaned and secured for the evening. Members of the public are not to be behind the dais. This meeting is adjourned.